Good evening, everyone. This is Vineet Pandey, and today we're going to talk about Mathew Arnold. Now, in this particular video lecture, to utilize the time, I have stopped the comments so that because when students ask questions, sometimes they are related to topics, sometimes they are related to exam dates, some other questions. So, in between, the lecture gets disturbed, and that's why today I have decided not to go for comment section so that I can teach you directly and there will be no hindrance. I hope you understand a lecture without interruption is actually a lecture. And along with this thing, I hope you can see me here. There are around 36 students, 56 likes are already there. So before I start the session, I will tell you that as we are approaching towards the exams, there is a time to revise. Karat karat abhyas, jadmati hot Suzan, rasri avajat pathar padat nishan. I will share the link with some other students also. Maybe some students are not having this idea, so they will check it. My team is also sharing the link with many of you. See, if you're a new student and you want the regular link of this channel, it's quite simple. You have to subscribe. It doesn't cost you money. You just have to subscribe. It's like that you are the part of this thing. You will get the links immediately. It will come to your notification. Even if you're traveling somewhere, you will find it that there is a notification. And a clear notification can simply make you the part of this class. Yeah, please switch the lights on. Yeah, please do that. Yeah, that will be fine. Okay, just leave it. Yeah, I can see my students. Thank you, thank you. So, guys, we're gonna talk about the writer today. It's Mathew Arnold, a poet, a critic. He is the best poet among the critics and the best critic among the poets. So, if we call him a critic, then out of all the critics, he was the best poet. If we say that he is a poet, that out of all the best poets, he was the best critic. Mathew Arnold, born 1822, died 1888. And yes, I must tell you this thing that how did he die? He died of a sudden heart attack. A heart attack. Why? Because he was at a railway station. He was chasing a train to meet his daughter. His daughter was married to an American. She was in America. And he wanted to go to America by train. Maybe he was taking some train for some particular place to finally go to America. So he was running after the train and then he fell down. He died there. Later it was found that this is Mathew Arnold, the professor of poetry at Oxford, inspector of schools for 35 years, son of famous writer, educationist Thomas Arnold, and even his brother and other people, the cousins, they were all philosophers, writers, novelists. Arnold came from a family of genius people. See, Arnold is called the founder of sociological criticism. Please keep writing these points. दोस्तों ये सारे points लिख लेना. Founder of sociological criticism. And why Mathew Arnold has become very important for net syllabus. He is one of the first modern critic. Yes, first modern critic. Most of the people say that this is T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot was a modern writer and a critic, so we call him a modern critic. But in the sense of modern criticism, it is Mathew Arnold who becomes the first modern critic. Mathew Arnold was the one who started experimenting in contemporary development of literature. Do you know that in his famous work, Study of Poetry, he said that poetry is better than religion? As that was the time of Victorian compromise, people were losing faith in religion. Arnold strongly believed that if there are no roots left for religion, poetry can be an escape. Poetry is better than history, poetry is better than philosophy, and above all, poetry is better than religion itself. Arnold himself was a feminist. There is a famous quotation that I'll make you write in this video. He said that if all the women come together for the betterment of mankind, that will be the greatest ever force formed. If all the women come together for the betterment of mankind, that will be the greatest ever force. सबसे बड़ी ताकत बनेगी. Now see, Victorians, we have divided in two parts. The optimistic one, the optimism, and the pessimism. Arnold represents the pessimistic side of Victorians, and it's simple because Arnold was actually a sage. उसे संत कहते हैं, संत, a sage, a saintly figure, a godly figure, a very sweet person, the one who strongly believed in moralities. In his famous work of 1867, Dover Beach, he says that this is the world where it has become. The world is full of lies, the world is full of miseries, and it's really hard to find love. It's really hard to find sympathy for each other. And then he looks at his wife and says, "Ah, love, let's be true to one another." So, as this lecture is going to help you with Mathew Arnold, it simply can make you write some points, because Mathew Arnold is equally involved in cultural studies. Culture is something best that has been thought and said. Very important quotation. Culture is something best that has been thought and said. Mathew Arnold, in his famous work Culture and Anarchy, becomes the first person who studies the culture, the base of cultural study. If you are preparing on your own, if you are preparing for net JRF exam, you want to hit JRF, remember this thing, that when you read culture study, do not go to the Buckingham School directly. Don't start reading culture studies directly from Stuart Hall, Raymond Williams. Start it with Mathew Arnold. अगर आप properly culture studies prepare कर रहे हैं, तो Mathew Arnold से start करना. ऐसा ना हो कि because the guidance is very important. Second thing, Mathew Arnold is a pessimistic writer. He strongly believed this thing, that losing the faith in religion and moving towards a mindset of science, we are in a situation, we are torn between two different worlds. One dead, one powerless to be born. That's the famous line by Mathew Arnold. He says that we are stuck between two different worlds. The one dead, we have lost the religion, other powerless to be born. He was inspired by John Henry Newman. He was inspired by John Cable. These two writers are the member of Oxford movement. Now, what is Oxford movement? The religious movement of Victorian writers, because some of the Victorian writers found that the religion is actually coming to an end. People are losing faith in religion, so we must re-establish religion. If you remember the question of Lollards, what was the duty of Lollards in the age of Chaucer? Lollards were simply, recreating interest in true religion, because they felt that people are losing faith in religion. So same thing is happening in Victorians. Writers like Robert Browning, writers like Tennyson, who were very much optimistic and believed in science, development, and superiority of human race, they all frustrated Arnold. Arnold believed in supremacy of God. Arnold believed that the human should not challenge God. Arnold believed that humans should not get involved in scientific developments and actually get deviated from the path of success, path of spiritual success. His famous work, Empedocles on Etna. This guy is fed up with materialistic life, wants to commit suicide, climbs the mountain Etna, which is in Italy. It's a volcano. He climbs there, reaches to the crater, and then gives the philosophy that how this world is actually a miserable world, a world which is full of fake things, forced things. If you remember my lecture on Plato, it's all imitation. Everything is a copy. There is nothing real. There is no reality. It's all copy. And Baudrillard calls it simulacra simulation. Jean Baudrillard says that the every image is a simulacra, a copy, and the multiple copies mixed together creates hallucination. That is called simulation. When you watch a movie on television, that is a reality but not a reality. A reality without reality. Your TV show, what you watch on YouTube channel, the actings are the reality without reality, right? You watch Shah Rukh Khan dying in the movie, but does he actually die? No. So what you watched is a reality of the movie, but not the reality. That's what he says, the simulation concept. That's what Plato says, that the world that is actually has been carved upon us, in front of us, which is not real at all. And Arnold strongly believed in these things. He was a supporter of classicism. His famous works, like I talk about his father, then I go for his famous works. Arnold had great learnings at his home. His father, Mr. Thomas Arnold, was credited with the private schooling system and development of higher secondary education. Even Mathew Arnold, as an inspector of schools for 35 years, worked a lot to develop the schooling structure. ये बहुत कम लोगों को पता होता है, नोट करते रहना दोस्तों. If you want scholarly lecture, I can deliver you. If you want point to point, Mathew Arnold born, his 5 works and date, anybody can tell. But go for these points. He himself was the inspector of schools. They can ask you a simple question that pick the options of the writers, the right pair of the writers who served as inspector of schools. Do you know that even W.B. Yeats was inspector of schools? He has famously written Among School Children. W.B. Yeats भी schools का inspector था, inspector of schools. They may ask you these kind of questions. So, Thomas Arnold, who has been celebrated by famous writer Lytton Strachey. Lytton Strachey has celebrated him in Eminent Victorians. All the online students, you must be knowing it. Eminent Victorians. There are 4 people who got celebrated by Lytton Strachey. A question of net exam. Paper में आ चुका है as it is. 4 Victorians: Florence Nightingale, Cardinal Manning, General Gordon, Thomas Arnold. 4 people got praised. Thomas Arnold was the famous headmaster of Rugby Chapel, the greatest school of that time, the greatest school. His famous student, Arthur Hughes Clough, was actually the best friend of Mathew Arnold. Arthur Hughes Clough, the best friend, the same person whose death has been celebrated by Mathew Arnold in his famous work, Tiresias, which is based on Virgil's 7th Eclogue, where there is a person, Tiresias, he loses his competition of singing. This guy is actually based on that. He was one of the finest students of Rugby Chapel. Now, most of the students, when they prepare for NET exam, you should know that even Arthur Hughes Clough was a writer. His famous work, Bothie of Taverna, his famous work, Amours de Voyage, these are very important ones. In fact, the epigraphs of French lieutenants' women written by John Fowles, they have been taken from Arthur Hughes Clough. My friends, there are students who are going to compete you in the exam and they are prepared with these things. I understand when I was also preparing, I didn't know these names. I thought it's only Arnold, it's only Eliot. So even I didn't know all these points. They are important ones. Arnold was very much interested in various mythologies. He praised William Shakespeare for his writings and said that Shakespeare was the genius. He says, we ask and ask, thou smilest, while others abide our question. He says that it's really hard to find out the depth of Shakespeare's genius. Arnold questioned the Oxford education system. He was a thinker, he was a reformer, he was an educationist. He questioned Oxford's education system and wrote a famous work, Scholar Gypsy. A scholar who is the student of Oxford University leaves the university and runs away. Imagine why somebody will leave Oxford University and run away. कोई Oxford University छोड़ के क्यों जाएगा? Why? But then he says that Oxford University was teaching something artificial, the fixed syllabus, the prescribed syllabus. And that is not true learning. What is true learning? The true learning is that comes to you directly. It is not morphed. It is not controlled. It is not censored. Even in our schooling system, in our colleges, the syllabus is something that, it goes through a screening and then they cut it short. The syllabus gets changed. Right now also, we have heard the news that even democracy and some other chapters have been removed from CBSE schools. So someone somewhere is controlling your syllabus. It means you're not getting the true knowledge. So that scholar, he understands that in Oxford University, what I'm learning is a knowledge which is controlled, which is not proper. And to find out the truth, the real knowledge, I must belong to life. I must connect to life. So scholar leaves the Oxford University, joins the gypsies. Who are the gypsies? The nomadic people, the people who live in the lap of nature, the people who are always connected to nature, the people who do not get the part of materialistic life. They simply work hard to eat and survive. He joins the gypsies. The gypsies are the ones who are roaming around. It was an attack on the education system of Oxford. Mathew Arnold, famous work, Balder, he talked about Norse mythology. How many of you know the Norse mythology is actually Norwegian mythology, deals with Odin, Thor, Loki, Hela, and Hermod, some other characters, Balder and Hermod. You must have seen Marvel movies. Marvel की movies देखी हैं आपने? Thor, Loki, Hela. They are the part of Norse mythology, and Arnold has dealt with that. The famous story Balder Dead deals with Norse mythology, where Odin's blood brother, Loki. In Marvel movie, it is said that Loki was adopted by Odin. He is the main criminal behind these things. So Arnold's interest in those literature and then the references of the deadness even in gods is narrated here. It's one of the work dealing with the finest tragic themes. Arnold, when he started writing, one of his finest work is Dover Beach. Dover Beach, for all the net aspirants, for all the literary lovers, literary scholars, it's a classic cult for you. It's a must-read work for you. ये आपको जरूर पढ़ना है. It's very, very important. Dover Beach, he talks to his wife. In fact, I have recorded a lecture in Maldives. When I was in Maldives, I could see the ocean, I could see the moon, and I connected. I was reminded of Dover Beach. That's my problem. Wherever I go, I find literature. Wherever I go, I see literature. Wherever I go, I connect literature. Even if I go to the mall, I connect carnivalesque. I go to watch a movie, I connect simulation. So this happens to me. So I have recorded lecture, it will be uploaded. But till then, you read Dover Beach. How his philosophy talks about the world, the development of the world. He says that the world that seems full of joy has no love, no joy. The world is full of miseries. This is the world where ignorant armies are clashing by night. He says, love, let's be true to one another. That's the only way to save the life. Then, out of all these works, if we talk about the study of poetry, as a critic he has also written, which is around 1880s. In study of poetry, he talks about touchstone method. He talks about that literature is better than any other thing. Poetry is far better. Poetry is far better than religion. And he talks about the concept of writing touchstone method. Now, please remember this point. In fact, I suggest you highlight this point. Touchstone method was coined by Mathew Arnold in the preface of his 1850s poetry. It is developed by Arnold in study of poetry. So if they ask you a tough question that who has coined the term, the touchstone method, Arnold in his preface of 1850s poetry. But where did he elaborate it? He elaborated touchstone method in study of poetry. And if I tell you Vineet Pandey level, Edison wrote Spectator. In one of his Spectator's issue, he talked about touchstone method, but he did not use the name touchstone. He talked about the theme and everything. He didn't use the touchstone method. So there we get for the first time the touchstone method. Edison's Spectator's one particular issue where it was an essay on writing. As you know, you must be knowing if you have attended my all the scholarly lectures, Edison was damn good in English language, and Samuel Johnson said that if you want to achieve mastery in English language, give your days and nights to Edison. Arnold's touchstone method simply says that to be a good writer, take the classical writers, their writings, their paragraph, their lines as touchstone. What is a touchstone? A mythical thing and kind of supernatural thing that touches the iron and converts the iron into a gold. So your writing is iron. The writings of the classical writers, the classical literary writers, that's touchstone. So if the writing of touchstone, you just read it, watch it, compare it, you keep comparing your iron writing to the classical writing and you keep reforming, it will become touchstone. These writings, these paragraphs, these essays can help you as a touchstone. So he simply says that if you are not a good writer, to write simply, what you do, get some classical writers, their books, their paragraphs, read them, try to understand the depth of it, keep comparing your writing with their writing. And as you keep comparing repeatedly, one day your writing will become better, or it means their writings will connect you to the level of gold. So it can be a touchstone method for you. How many of you have this Venetian's cup? गला थोड़ा सा वो है, तो आई एम हैविंग माई ग्रीन टी. यस, Venetian's cup. थोड़ा एडवर्टाइज कर लेते हैं. इफ यू वांट टू टेक इट, सिंपली कॉल माय ऑफिस. वो आपको दे देंगे, वो मेरे को लेना देना नहीं है, वो उनको मिलेगा पैसा. एंड हाँ, someone was saying, oh, he started advertisement. So your Akshay Kumar is selling gutka. If I can just show a cup having my name, so what's wrong? And we are not forcing you to buy it, just inspiration for you. It's just like you will find a cup, it will be written for you, JRF is a dream, my dream JRF. It inspires you. Everything has a name. These pens are having the name, so you cannot avoid these things. So instead of taking something in a negative shade, take it in a positive shade. Your shampoos have some brands, your comb has some brands, your perfume has some brands. So how does it matter who is selling? It's you, whether you need it or not. If there are certain cups which are having the line, the Dream JRF, if it inspires you, Dream JRF cup, like this is not having Dream JRF, I'm already a double JRF, so I don't need another JRF. But if you want Dream JRF kind of thing for you, any symbol can inspire you, anything can motivate you. So if you think you need it, we all need cups. What if your cup has a line Dream JRF? So call the office, and obviously it's not their business. The energy, the time they will use to sell one cup and earn 20 rupees, they can utilize the same time to get a student in the batch and to earn obviously thousands. So obviously it's not their business. उनका business नहीं है. कौन बेवकूफ 10 मिनट लगा के 20 रुपए कमाएगा? It is just that we are providing these things to our offline batch students, our bags, our water bottles, our pen. For offline student, it is free. For online, we will have to send it to you through courier. That's why it is chargeable. But आपकी मर्जी है. It's just whether you need it or not. Anyway, advertising done. अब करते हैं काम की बात. Now see, as the your preparation never gets completed, whatever you study. So today I also noted some important points. I was working on these points. These are the kind of quotations, very important for you. The rest of my lecture, it was all in my brain. You must have seen my eyes. I am not like those who read it and then speak. But now here, these are the new quotations, new points. I also wrote it for the first time. So I am going to share it with all of you. The first thing, journalism in literature. Journalism is literature in a hurry. A famous quotation by Mathew Arnold about journalism. Journalism is a literature in a hurry. जल्दी जल्दी लिखा हुआ literature. अच्छा point है. Second point, second quotation. The free thinking of one age is the common sense of the next. Note it down. Important है. Then I told you about the women. I'll read it again for you. No need to write, just listen to it. If there ever comes a time when the women of the world come together purely and simply for the benefit of mankind, it will be a force such as the world has never known. I told you he talked about the women things. Please, what you do, just play the lecture from the backside and rewind it, and you can write down these things. Then, there is a particular thing that I must tell it to you. I think I already have told it. Arnold inspired many writers. One of them is Alan Tate. His famous work, Tension in Poetry, has taken the reference of touchstone method. I have just narrated touchstone method. This can be asked in your NET exam. It is connecting literary theory. Alan Tate wrote Tension in Poetry. How many of you have read that? Intention, extension, concept of tension by Alan Tate in literary theory. This has taken the reference of touchstone method. So these are some points. कुछ और quotation है, but obviously not for you. वो high level quotations हो जाएंगी. So I will be reading those quotations for me. They will come to you indirectly. Subscribe the channel for more lectures, more scholarly lectures. And yes, लिटरेरी थ्योरी लेक्चर्स के लिए भी चैनल सब्सक्राइब कर लो. If you have not prepared yet, we invite you to join the crash course to have more lectures on board where I will be explaining it to you. In exam, they have asked the concept of tension by Alan Tate. It's not the tension of the brain, it is poetry's tension, intention, extension. What is common? Tension. So what are these concepts? You can write in the comments. You can also write in the comments that what lecture you want in my next live class. I will be going for the same lecture. Along with these things, I suggest you start doing early morning revision. Early morning revision. Read for the day, read for the night. Go for early morning revision. Alexander Pope said, "Let Homer's work be your study and delight. Read them by day, meditate by night." All my students who are following my lectures, I will correct this quotation for you and I will say, let my work, my classes be your study and delight. Read them by day, meditate by night. Thank you so much. If you love the lecture, share it with people. And if you have suggestions, feel free to write in comments. Thank you so much. Once again, advertising.